Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This is Benita coming to you with the last episode of my podcast on leadership. Stay tuned for a new podcast next week. Today, I want to talk about leadership and the shadow. This is about looking at those aspects of ourselves we'd really rather not acknowledge are there. This means acknowledging that aspect of ourselves that would like to rule the roost, that wants to take over, manipulate, and change how other people see things in order to get our own way. If we're going to lead successfully, we have to acknowledge our shadow. We have to acknowledge those patterns within ourselves that, if allowed to take hold, would run the show in a way that doesn't really benefit ourselves or others. I grew up with a very dominant father. He liked being in charge. He liked being the center of attention. And he really made it difficult for other people to step onto the stage or to have any say really in anything. And the only way I could really stand up to him was to adopt some of his traits. And in fact, I was rewarded for that. He admired if I showed more of my masculine side of my energy. So I learned to be tough. I learned to be strong. But I could also be a real bossy boots. So over time, I had to work on that. I had to allow the softer side of myself to come up. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't be a good leader. It meant that I had to help my shadow to become conscious. So that part of ourselves that can be pushy, that can be dominant, can become simply direct, clear, powerful in its ability to motivate others and inspire rather than dominate. It means that we have to bring the softer side of our personality up with that energy that untamed can be harsh. Without it, without that dominant masculine energy, we're only bringing half of ourselves to our leadership role. And when I say masculine, I'm not talking about gender here. So this is not about judging male or female. Our masculine is the energy that takes action, that creates the structure that supports the feminine, which is the intuitive, receptive side. So the one energy receives, and the other side brings forth into the world from the awareness that comes from having received our higher wisdom. Those two energies of the yin and yang, they balance each other out. If we're too much in the feminine, we may get a lot of ideas we never really bring into the world. We never actually create with. If we're too much in the masculine, we may throw a lot of energy out there. We may try a lot of things, but because we haven't sat and gotten the information from the feminine wisdom receiving energy, it's uninformed by that. And there's a lot of wasted action. There's a lot of mistakes made and a lot of karma created in our trying to put something out into the world. So we want to balance those energies. In its uneducated, uninformed, raw form, the masculine is the hunter energy. It just goes out and gets what it wants, which was absolutely necessary when, to survive, you had to go get food. You had to, look for it in the wild. You had to fight with warring tribes to take what you needed from the world. In primitive times, that raw form of our masculine served us well. Today, it needs to be tempered with the softer energies that take into account everybody's needs and look for a way to work cooperatively with others. So we want to be aware. Am I trying to dominate this conversation? Am I trying to get my way in a way that doesn't acknowledge the needs of the other people around me? Am I allowing the raw, unconscious form of my energy to come forward without sitting still, observing, and allowing it up in such a way that it can see what's going on, learn about the best possible way for it to come forward, and not just leap forward in such a way that it creates disruption and therefore karma. It's really important for us as leaders to check in with ourselves on a regular basis. What is my motivation in this situation? Am I looking for my way? Have I decided my way is always the best way? Or can I work in a more fluid way? Can I acknowledge that other people in this situation may have input that has wisdom I don't have? Can I at least allow the other people in this situation to express themselves so that we can all benefit from the wealth of knowledge, experience, and input that everybody can provide? My mentor had a wonderful way when he worked in project management to say, this is the ideas we have. Tell us what's wrong with them. In other words, it helped everybody on the site to be invested in the final product, because if they saw something not working properly or they anticipated it might not, they had an opportunity to have input. And from the project manager coming from a place of, I'm willing to be wrong. And that's how our shadow often learns, is to find out its viewpoint can be quite narrow, may not be operating from all the information available, and therefore our approach may or may not be the right approach. It might be there's an adaptation that's necessary. It might be we're completely going down the wrong path for that particular situation, and we could benefit from hearing what other people have to say, which allows everybody else to be more invested and allows for the whole situation to culminate in group buy-in, everybody on the same page, everybody feeling involved, everybody feeling necessary to the project, valued by the people in charge. So when you're going forward into your work as a leader, be willing to connect with your inner tyrant and to fully, honestly acknowledge the ways in which you simply want to acquire for your own benefit, whether that's status or a higher position, more money. Remember that that part of our psyche is very basic. It's just looking for needs based on its original purpose, which was pure survival. If we are to thrive, we need to be community-minded. We need to acknowledge everybody's part in the story. And therefore, we need to bring the softer energies in that are perceptive and receptive, that are looking at the whole picture, looking at everything that plays a part, and working with all of that information so that as we move forward, yes, we allow the dominant energy to create and express itself in a way that provides direction, but the receptive energy is the energy that does it holistically, that takes everything into account and allows us to proceed more gently going forward so that we give clear direction. We're absolutely aware of our mission, but we're bringing everybody into the story and moving forward, creating something better than we could ever have done if we were only listening to ourselves and not all the other players on stage. So as you go forward this week, pay attention to where you are coming from. And you'll know, because you'll come from a calm and centered place. If you're not attached to things going your way, and there'll be a tightness, there'll be some kind of constriction internally or tension if you're trying to dominate, if you're trying to come from a place that's only taking your viewpoint into account. So it'll be an interesting week exploring, how am I leading? Am I letting my shadow that's unconscious run the show? Or am I inviting it to come forward with all aspects and achieve an approach that, while still clear, becomes more effective? Because when we're centered, people can hear us better, and they're much more likely to respond in a way that's effective for all and for the final outcome. Thanks very much, everybody. I look forward to seeing you next week.